Good morning. Good morning. How's everyone doing? Make sure everyone can hear me. Okay. Well, definitely not a bad start to the morning. I feel like at least we got some of that volatility. I just took a long. I really wanted to see if they'd try holding the line here. So, really important spot for us from the report. So I figured we could try down here. What is this? Yeah, you don't have to take like big size or anything like that. Let me just turn on my screen. Make sure you guys can see it. Can you guys see the screen okay? Just before I keep going and talking here, I want to make sure you guys can actually see it. Because on my side, for some reason, it's not showing, but I think it's there. Okay. Perfect. Let me just go back. Okay, so the big idea here this week is that they could definitely try having maybe a core to core week. And even though we're probably going to be stuck within a 34 to 44 point range, once one end breaks, then we can start gauging higher. Remember what I said last night and yesterday? What was the big spot to break? What allowed for this nice little short setup? Don't get this wrong, because we went over this probably 4-5 times yesterday. And I'm just going to clean this up a bit because, yeah, like close to 5.5, 5.4, right? Like we figured if they end up coming beneath that, that's all that's really needed to take this into the channel, right? Like once they bring this back beneath like a 34 point range, and it basically held by a hair last night, if you guys were paying attention, like around this area here. If you were looking last night, they tried their best to hold it. Did you see that? Look, like they held by like a fraction here. Do you see this? And until they basically couldn't quite sustain it anymore. So there was some slight breaches. They came back, tried to retrace. Notice they stalled 7.1, 7.2. They basically stalled that area that we really wanted them to close above yesterday. And we did say that they could have a reset. So another way you can look at it is like they basically failed to bring it back. Whether you want to look at it as like a 17 point range from open close or 34 from highs. It was basically they forgot, they couldn't quite bring it back to this area here. Do you guys see this? Right? Ended up coming back testing. They held. This was a pretty solid break, okay, when they took this back to 7.9 or 7.6, sorry. That was that 7.6, 7.7 spot from yesterday. Remember how I said 7.6, 7.7 was a pretty big overhead from yesterday's session? This is exactly where they stalled. I think it was 7725. That was the overhead from yesterday. So what could this imply for us today? They ended up opening at, where did they open the session today? They opened at 646625. Is that a good open or a bad open? And they did test 76. They didn't quite test that 77 spot, but they did test 76. Is that a good open or a bad open? And this is the exact scenario we talked about yesterday. We said they could either hold the line right at 5.5 or they could push it down to those 20s, which is what they ended up doing. Another scenario was if they held and closed above, then they could keep this break going up. What was the big overhead from yesterday? Remember that 77, 76? It was the offset in the range differential that we had. And all of it pointed to this spot here. It was around 7675, 77. So just in case you guys forgot. So that's going to be the overhead that we definitely have to break. Okay, I don't think any of that changes. That was the difference in offset from yesterday. Okay. Let me go back here. It wasn't the best, but it wasn't bad. 6.6 is still above 6.4, 6.5. It's still above the means, right? And it's, even though it's a lower core area, it gives it an odd of doing both sides. So they basically open like above 6.4, 6.5, beneath 6.8, 6.9, broke 7.4, stalled 7.7. Do you see what I'm saying? Right? So even though they didn't quite get that 7.7 spot, they still did break 7.4, 7.5, 7.6. They still opened above 6.4, but beneath, so it's kind of like right in between, right? They tried holding 5.5, 5.4. This was the nice short setup here. Like once they stalled this area here, you can't afford to come back below. Like even if you missed the entry up here, this is where I entered short, you could have easily entered in this area right here because this second failure here, and notice the volume. Do you see this? Look at the liquidity back in here. Do you see that? Right off here. So this implied that we're going to get down to where? And in the report, I didn't have anything in between. I just said that if they stall these areas, we're going to go back to 68 420s, which is exactly where they took this to. And it's even from the previous week. Like if you pay attention, a lot of this is repetitive. So 6422 implied that 645868 area, right? With 34 to 44 point stalls being closer to 6456, 57. Do you see what I'm saying? Isn't it pretty crazy? So overnight they held around 54, 55, 56. Today they opened at 66. They took it right back to where? Where do they take this right back to? This is extremely calculated. Like we have the blueprint. You guys are so lucky. This is such an easy trade. Where do they take this right back to? 7.6 is progressive. Because it's not quite 7.7, but it's still in that realm that we need. Do you see how they're making it so that they trade both sides? They're keeping it like right in between. Do you see this? This gives you odds of both sides to break, right? So how important was it that they held 6422? This is a huge spot. This is our core area. This is core to core. Do you see it? This is a core spot. Core to core. Okay? So, and did they open in core areas today? At 6.6. Core areas generally start between 6.6 and 6.8. Usually I prefer above 6.8, but it's still above 6.4, right? So it could still give us an odd of getting that retracement back to OR. Even if they don't get it all the way back to OR today, the minimum we were looking for is at least a reset back to the mean. So back to 6.4, 5.5, 5.6, 5.8. Okay? What would be the most ideal scenario for today? What were we looking at redoing today? And I said it yesterday. What did I say that they could do today? They could take it lower to then take it higher, right? Which means what? Yeah, for a better pin. Did we have the best pin yesterday? Where they pinned it? They pinned it at 6-7. Not really, right? What did we want to, where did we want to pin yesterday? We wanted at least 7-2, 7-3, 7-6, 7-8, right? So those are the two scenarios that they could play today. They could either nest this in the mean, since there's not really much pressure for today and yesterday. A little bit more pressure tomorrow, high pressure on the 21st. So two things that they could do here is they could either they'll take this right back to the means and just nest it here, which is, guess what? That's a 34-point break. Do you see that? From these lows, right? This is overall, that's a 55-point hold. That's your core to core. Core to core is usually 51 to 56 points. This overall range, 66.75. Do you see that? So the two scenarios that they could play out with today is they could take it back to the means. If they took it back to the means, you'd be playing within like a 34 to probably 44-point range. And it makes sense because if you take it back to a 44-point range, you're back at 6-6. Do you see that? So today's low is back to 6-6 is 6-4, 6-6, 50. Today's low is back to a 34-point range, is back to that 6-4, 5-6 area, right? If they took this back to 6-4, 6-6, 50, that's taking it back to what? So 44-point range takes you back to real-time OR, okay, 6-4, 6-6, 50. 34-point range takes you back to 6-4, 5-5, 6-4, 5-6. Do you see what I'm saying? And that would just give you the odd of basically resetting this entire close. So like the two scenarios is they can either hold it here or take it back here. They could take it all the way back, right? Or they could set this up to give us a better close. If they give us a better reset for the close, that's where we'll get that nice doji that we talked about. Remember how, or like a, like kind of like this. I know it's kind of hard to see like this, but remember we talked about these scenarios. If they decide to give us a better pin today, take it down, and then bring it back up to core ranges. So I really hope we get a core to core day. That would make it so much easier for tomorrow, because then tomorrow would set us up to finally get the retest of 8-4, 8-8. Do you see what I'm saying? 9-6, 9-7, and then we'd have those odds to retest by the 21st, because the idea was they could come back and test 6-4 or 6-5, 20, 6-5, 22 by the 21st or 22nd, depending on the range. Yeah, it's basically aligned back to that. So even if they were to just bring it back to OR and then give us a nice breakup from here, right? Like this would still get us that 9-7 test that we need to break, right? And then the 44-point break should get us a break to our 64.10. So do you see why they're keeping it calculated around 6-6? Because technically 6-6 is all we need for like 64.10 or 65.10. Isn't that crazy? And remember what I said yesterday? It seems like they're making this more attracted to 6-5-10 versus 6-5-2-2. I said this yesterday. Like it seems like they're trying to gauge closer to that, especially if they want to compress the week a little bit. They'll minimize the upside and probably extend the downside. And that would end up resulting in like giving us our 88-point week. Make sense? So let's see if we hold here. This is the best spot for us to hold. If we don't hold here, then that's where things can get a little bit trickier. But I figured like we could at least try getting, you know, some holds off this area here. So what do you guys think? You think that they're gonna hold the line here? So far, it's not a bad structural hold. Like, this is pretty clean. The big overheads here is obviously getting back into the channel. Channel entries are right at 3334. This area here. So if they can get this back above this range here, this is going to really help us. Clearing the channel is going to give us the best odds of avoiding staying stuck at the means, okay? What do you have to do to clear the channel? What do you have to do to clear the channel? This is also the 12, 13 point break right here, if they do end up clearing this range. By the way, what would they have to do to clear the channel? I would bet that breaking this supply range right here, you see where there was some liquidity in that little 3 bar, is probably the 17 point range. If they break this area here. And that's like breaking 6439, 41. Our 22 point range is likely that 44 overhead. So they break these ranges here. It basically takes them back to these stick ranges where all this liquidity came in. This is where the bigger sell-off was, right? Yeah, if they wanted to really avoid staying stuck this afternoon and at least get it back to the means, I would rather they digest the means than the channel at these spots here. Normally, I don't want to digest at the means, but because it implies volatility, but because of the ranges we're working with, it would be better if they could try bringing it back above here. And even if it's just to nest in these ranges here for a bit, okay? Which normally isn't the case, but I feel like that would help us in avoiding some volatility this afternoon. So a channel sweep would be basically taking out, coming back above these supply ranges here from those 11 a.m. sticks. Is this going to be the trickiest part of the day? This 13 point break? Between 13, 17, 22 points right here. This is going to be the toughest part of the day, I think. Like the 6-4-2-2 hold, the 6-4-3-5 break, 3-9 break, 4-4 break. Like basically the channel break is going to be the tough part. And I'm not surprised that like the shitty ranges, like you know how I always say 24, 26, 28 points suck, 29 points, like anything above 22 but beneath 32, those 10 points are the worst ranges to trade. Guess what? Those are like right in the channel and right beneath the 5-5. Isn't that crazy? Like those crappy ranges off these lows are going to be beneath 5-5, okay, above 4-4. What's beneath 5-5 but above 4-4? Think about it. What's this little range right here? If you're beneath 5-5, okay, but above 4-4, what's that a battle between? What's that a battle between? Let me reset my chart. What would they be battling there if they ended up doing that? So currently right now, this 13 point range to 17, 22 point range is a battle between upper zone and channel. Okay, if they stall that upper range, it would be a battle between upper channel, lower means. Which doesn't give you confined direction. Does that make sense? Hi. So those are the two spots they can struggle between, this area here and this area here. It's kind of like the battle in between the two ranges, because failing this range here is what could take you back to that 65.10, 64.10, 64.03, right? Like we would prefer to avoid doing that because it's not really going to give us the best odds for our resets this week. So pretty big overhead here. Sweeping the channel is going to be the best case scenario, but I'm not sure on timing. I just figured that they'd probably have to do it before 2:30, right? Like I don't really want to stay stuck here all afternoon. Let's take a look. I didn't really measure too many intervals today. I would imagine that even the break between the 17-point ranges right here is probably that first break of the channel, like every like 30 minutes. Yeah, it was. Do you see this? This is where it would make sense. It could take up to like an hour, like maybe between like those 2 p.m. intervals. I think it's like a 35 to 37 minute window is what I'm seeing. Okay, so they still have some odds here. We'll just have to see if they have enough to, and mostly on the sticks that allowed there to be liquidity. So my thoughts would be if they can't get this to break within like the next probably like 2 to 3 minutes, then it could stay stuck until past 2. Like there's some decent odds around like 204, 206, 07, 08 that we're gonna watch for. But I think breaking at least like some midpoints here is probably not a bad idea. This still isn't a bad spot to take a long. You might just be like a few points though, like between the 20s and, because this is a very important time of day here if they're going to try as early as here to even just clear like these lower ranges. So let's see how many think that they're going to try breaking as early as now. Like it's more of like the 3.8 mark, like this 3.8, 3.9 area. This is the bigger overhead. I thought the odds at this point in time were pretty low. Like I figured they'd probably wait till after 2 just because of the ranges that we're working with. Like see this, that's a reduction stick. Can someone document this? Calculate a time of day here causing a breakdown back to 3.2. This was the earliest point that I was thinking they could try getting a snap over that 17-point range. So let's see. Do you see the range on this stick? Let's calculate this. You might get an entry here. 3.25 points. Let's see if that equates to that 3.8 spot. How many points is it total? 3.5. Do you guys see this? So There's definitely some odds there. These are the calculated points here, guys. And points in time for getting some range breaks. So in terms of trying to come back and battle these areas here. And they're likely going to be very similar in range to like what we had back here. Like, so you see this, 3.75, 3.5. The nice thing is there was multi flips right here, so it gives it a window to negate just in case they did retrace it back down. Do you see how this is a battle between the zone and channel? Do you see it? And this would be the time of day that they're going to try figuring out which end wins. Like, obviously we want this above 3.233. And I think even keeping it above there keeps it above our 12-point range. So we need at least above 3.450. Ideally 3.5. And ideally at this time here, off the 4.8 stick. Let's watch the 150 stick too, just because 150 is usually an important time of day. Do we have any catalysts this afternoon? Yes, we are. This is my big support off the report, so I really didn't want to miss this off that 2-2. So first calculated points in the day here, reducing range down and stalling. This was the more higher probability window right here, but we'll have to see what they do in the next like 2 minutes, because I think this is important. Another thing to note too is that the initial structure breakdown that caused the bigger reversal here beneath 5.5, 5.4, do you guys see the timing of this? So this occurred around 10:48 and 11 a.m. Okay, so there could be that window throughout this period here too, is another way that we can look at this. Like between here, just to see if they can at least bring the period of like 2 p.m. back. Which is also going to be the 17-point break, right? Which a 17-point break is needed to get what? Why do we need a 17-point break? The structure breakdown right here was pretty bad because that's what caused that bigger reversal. Why do we need a 17-point break? What could that entail for us, especially for end of day? That's what we need to get back to that 6.455 at a minimum, right? So, which is our super calculated area for overnight support. So the range that we get, guys, during this period here, are you guys listening? Is what's going to give us an idea of how much range they might want to give us on the full session, okay? Everyone's on the same page? Where if they maybe give us like a 22-point break, then we have some odds of getting 6.6, which is back to OR. Sucks that they reduced this stick here. I was hoping that they'd break it. 28 points would kind of keep us conflicted, but obviously getting like the full 33-point break is going to be even better. Like if they can do something like this, that's going to give us odds for getting not only the retest of overnight highs or morning highs, but maybe even the retest of our weekly highs and maybe getting back to the zone. Okay, so I thought getting into the zone today's odds were kind of low, especially if they took it back to here. All I really would want would be like a core-to-core break, which is back to like this line right here. And try keeping it away from this range in here. I do want to watch just before 2 p.m. All right, let's see. What do you guys think? You think that they're going to clear 6438 by 2 p.m. or you think they're going to keep this stuck? So far, this is still a battle between the upper zone and lower channel. Let's get some votes on that. So the odds seemed a little bit better after 2, but I feel like if they can try getting it back up to here, then obviously it would be more helpful. Johnson & Johnson's having a pretty decent day. Did anyone take this long on J&J on that alert that I sent you guys last week or the week before? Like, this was a pretty solid move since. And I did say that this one could easily come back and where's that template on this? And retest those highs. Even Netflix stalling exactly 12:46, 47 today is pretty impressive. They're holding the line here. That's actually worth noting that Netflix even triggered these spots today in the morning. See if I can... Apple, I think, was stuck right at this range here. You can see it right here. So our spots are for sure accurate across the board. Where did my Johnson & Johnson chart go? Here, I think this is it. It was this break right here off 167 to 171, and it's kind of just been in a non-stop break here. I think we did say that the bigger break on this thing would be that they could take it all the way back to these annual ranges, right? And then come back and give us a structure break, because this is a really big negation candle basically, and this could take it right back to its highs. Kind of like this range in here, like clearing this area here. It was this break right here. So far it's been in a non-stop cycle of breaking back up into these ranges. And you can see that upside reversal. I don't know, I just thought that that was a really nice setup on that. MRK was a nice setup too for some of those. This one's, I still think, a really nice setup. MRK is actually triggering that 85, 82, guys, if anyone took the September calls on this one. This was a really nice looking swing trade on MRK. I think they tagged that 80 spot today. Pretty sure I have an alert set there. Yeah, I do. So far getting stuck. So this is a very similar time period to this time period here. Okay. Between basically here. The max extension was close to like 61, 64 minutes. So good job on voting no. I didn't really think that they would break during this time either, especially because of the calculated times at 4, 6, 7, 8 stalling. 5, 4 is holding the line though, so this is good. I just wanted to see how they'd react just before too. So 5, 4 holding, 5, 7 trying to come back and retest here. We'll watch for the 5-9 stick too. Any of you guys do any of the swing trades on these? I feel like MRK, you still have a pretty decent entry from these ranges here. What about crypto? Did they take it back? Yeah, they did. So this was the range off 113 that could allow for like a bigger structure break if they hold, but this flip on this was pretty solid. Like this flip date, especially when they stalled this range right here. Yeah, that 235 wall on Apple is insane, but Netflix too. Like this is so impressive. Like look at where it stalled, you guys. This is calculated. That's insane. Like it stalled exactly off that spot. That's a nice short off this too, like right off open. And right back to this range in here. Netflix, you'd probably want it to nest around like the 12, 16, 20s, maybe like this range in here. If it can't get the full retracement back. Obviously going all the way back to 1240s would be even better. If it fully retraced. A lot of things are kind of just stuck here. Okay, let's see what ES does here. Let's set some alerts for 3.8 because that's, well, maybe it's 3.850, but whatever. Is this helping you guys? I know I didn't really stream too much yesterday, but I already knew that yesterday was going to be a very sideways, sticky session. Today had a little bit better odds. And only because they broke one end of the trade. Okay, so them closing, guys, in the channel before 2, is that a good thing or a bad thing? What would be the minimum area you'd want to close here before 2 o'clock? What do you think? I mean, ideally, like 3.3, 3.4, right? A 34 point or 12 point range would be even better. So far they're stalling 12 points on the stick. Well, we want it at least in the channel. But we also want above a 12, 13 point break. So this isn't really the best spot. It's still in the channel, but it's not above a 12 point break, which can cause some issues. It's not bad, it's not good. It's in the channel, it's not above the incremental range, right? Which can cause that volatility to trigger right back down, which is what they're doing. The calculated times, though, are here, so that's the only reason why it's... Does that make sense? Like, I know from a very base approach, the 2 p.m. structures, okay, but the odds are actually closer to here. So I would be more concerned if it doesn't close above those ranges, closer to like 204, 06, 07. Does that make sense? But them breaking it above here definitely would have helped us during this point, because you can already see the reduction in the sticks in range. All right. Pull. Clear. Let's go 208, 210 p.m. Do they still have an odd of retesting the lows off 2.2? So far, they're still battling between the channel and the zone, right? Like there's nothing upper channel and lower, or sorry, upper zone and lower channel entries, like right around this area here. Usually between like 2.7, 2.8, 2.9, 30, 32, 33, 34, like this range in here. It's about a 6 point range usually. Or like 6.5 points. So kind of exactly where they're kind of holding this right here. Do you see what I mean? Where like they break 2 to 3 points above, but then they can break 2 to 3 points below 3-2. So that's a pretty bad spot to take it back to. Like you don't really want to break down too much range during these intervals here. Yeah. Well, I mean, losing 2-9 is technically we can still afford to retest 2-2. It's just it would be better that they avoid going back to this area here. Like this is the area that would cause a lot more volatility, but it's on the report, right? Like I did mention on the report that they could definitely have a battle of the zone. Taking it back to zone ranges would be like 6-3, 8-8, 90, 9-3, 9-7. That would just really reduce our odds on the week though for getting back to the 6508 retest. I think them stalling ahead of 2 though, they're going to give us that back test here. So we'll see. Unless they get like good negation sticks. Didn't you guys say that we had a Fed speaker too coming up here? Do you see all the range in this period though? So I would say that had they closed a little bit higher ahead of 2 o'clock, you would have seen this exact range on upside, and this is probably going to net that 12 points, okay? Do you see what I mean? They could have swept the channel. Look. And they could have taken it through 4-4, 4-6. You would have had channel sweeps and then likely the 50s retested by as early as like the 204, 205, 206 window. All right, let's see here. See if there's any liquidity that starts coming in. This is the first calculated time at 204. Look at the volume there. Do you guys see that? 204 is an extremely calculated point in the day here. Do you see this? This would be the only time to try to negate. So who was it that was saying this? Or I'm kind of going back and forth between YouTube and Twitch. But yeah, like, do you see like there is a chance that they could backtest this, but they could also really try their best to hold. And if they're going to, it has to be during this period here. Between like 204 and 208. This is a very important period for basically bulls to try and defend. Especially since they brought the range down. How many think that they're going to retrace this back over 3-2, 3-4 during this little window that we have here? Because if they're going to break structure, it would have to be during this point in time. I think we did say that there was an extension through like 210. I'm not sure about 212, but the window wasn't too big. And of course it would be during a time that there's a Fed speaker. Well, you're saying no, but there's a Fed speaker, right? So, I mean, it could give us the volatility that you need. I don't think that they could clear 3-8, but there's definitely a decent chance they could get this back over 3-2, 3-3. Do you know what I mean? Like during this period, especially if they held the line with liquidity off 204. Yeah, well, when you battle between two ends, it's kind of like a tug of war. Do you see what I'm saying? This is a battle between a zone and a channel. Because failing to get back above this area here, guys, at this time of day, is what's going to keep this area at risk, okay? Of 63.88, 90s, 64.05. This is a very crucial point for the week. And this is the point in time to try to save the range. Make sense? So I'd say the cutoff is probably 210, but we'll see here. You guys are saying no? How many think that they'll take this back to the channel here in the next 2 minutes? They're pretty close. This is a really big spot to stall if they end up stalling it here. And very important area to try to retrace. This is kind of like the 6-point range that keeps it back and forth. They're basically playing within a 12 to 13 point ratio here. So stalling that 12-point ratio just ahead of 2 is what caused this volatility. Do you see this? Do you see that stall? So you would want this at least over 3.450. And I would say by, I had by max 210, but we can watch this 212 window. We'll have to see here. Well, from my report, I have first major support for the week is 64.22. So this is a pretty massive spot to hold if they're going to try protecting this week. Otherwise, that's where the window of range can open down. But this would be an ideal spot to hold based on where we open the week from a math approach. But this point here is going to be what deciphers this for us. Oh, I didn't even realize they took it exactly back to 642.250. That's insane. All right, let's see. 210 was kind of the cutoff period here of trying to get this back to 3334. If they don't test 3334 here, guys, just pretend it did. Okay, so I look very smart. Yeah, that would be like a double bottom. It would be really nice. And that's when they could try coming back and clearing 3842, etc. So let's see. Did you get your entry, Lee? Off the second back test of those 20s? You still have to be a little bit careful here because we're still not quite where we want to be. This seemed like the point in time, but we'll watch these 2 minutes here. Because you don't want it beneath for too long. Almost the same duration of time of the initial reversal here, which is about like 5 minutes. Because I feel like if it stalls at 10, then that volatility is going to stay on. So 6432 stall so far, which is still top of the zone. I left that 2-minute window just in case, but that would have been the more ideal point in time here, is this 210 window. We'll see if they try to immediately negate off 11 and then try getting back over this in this box range here. Let me just like this range right here. The 64-minute mark. I mean, battles of like a zone and channel is like probably one of my biggest pet peeves. So far, it doesn't look like it's sticking. The thing is with this kind of stall right here, like right off 3-2, like right at that line, in these increments of time, could keep this delayed for another half hour. I feel like that would really reduce our odds this afternoon and could end up keeping this stuck in like a channel range, which isn't the worst case scenario, but that doesn't really, especially since we don't really have super high odds for tomorrow either. Odds were higher on the 21st and 22nd, so technically they can afford to delay this if they want because of the probabilities being a little bit higher later this week. But I still do think it's important that they at least try bringing it back to this box range here this afternoon. We're gonna watch our window here. Like this isn't terrible if it's stalled off 210. It's just not the best for range and for odds. This could start increasing volatility a little bit, but also cause some compression if they decide that they still want to hold the line off the 20s, but also not really retrace back up into the 50s. Does that make sense? It would keep us kind of sideways in the channel would be my thoughts. This was definitely the best window to try giving this back the clear. I wonder what the range was on these sticks off 210. Like I want to see how much range they could have retraced this by. There's that 3.5 point ratio. Seems to be common off that. 3.5 would have brought us back to like that 3.5 retest, which I think would have brought us back to a 12 point range or 13 point range. Do you see that? That's pretty cool, isn't it? Even off like the closing or opening sticks, would have brought us back to like a 13 point range exactly. That was the reduction off 210. So 210 did imply that they could have brought this back to a 12, 13 point break had they cleared that up over 3.3, 3.4. Which is the only reason why we could see a retest, but what is this implying here? Based on the implied range that they had for 210 and where they ended up holding, what could this imply? What would that potentially imply? Oh wow, this was the exact 44-point hold off open. I didn't even realize that. How come no one pointed that out? None of you guys know what that could imply? What could this imply? I wasn't going silent because I had no thoughts. I was going silent so that so that you guys could answer. Oh, sorry, maybe you sent it in Substack or in the Discord. I didn't see that. So based on the implied range that they gave at 210 and where they stalled right off 3-2 and the timing of that and the implications of that having been a 13-point range break had they cleared in time, what is this implying? Also the liquidity off 6422 and this being a 44-point hold off open. 642225 is extremely calculated here. This is also off the weekly opening ranges right here, okay, because we opened right at 6-7 this week, so this is them holding basically off weekly range off 2-2. What is this implying? It's okay to be wrong, just like, what do you guys think this is implying? $64.10 was pretty important from the past. Where did they stall the week? They stalled the week around 8-4, right? Well, there's only two things that could really happen here. You guys are thinking too far out. If they want to make this more of a neutral type week, then they could come back to like 64.10, 6400, 6399 areas. Those are also in alignment with the ranges from open and from highs and weekly open. But based on the range that they gave at 210 and the fact that this implied a 13-point break had they cleared in time, what is this potentially implying? In real time right now, okay? Forget this week. In real time right now, what did this stick tell us? Delay. That's the right answer. Do they have another attempt then? This is where a lot of people will get screwed up, by the way. And look at what the majority of you are saying immediately. Look at what every single one of you said. Immediately, all of you had the same thoughts. You guys are missing the point. Is this a calculated time? Do you understand what a calculated time is? It's supposed to give you a calculated price, right? Could that time interval potentially delay you? Could you have some delays, maybe? What do you guys think? Probably some important midpoints coming up here around that 24, 25 window. How long could you be delayed for? What did we say? I said it earlier. Not really sure if you guys were listening or not, but how long could they keep us stuck here for? Yeah, 30 minutes to an hour maybe, right? So mostly relative to what they do during this period here. So do they still have a shot at reattempting 3334? I would say so. They definitely need some better structure breaks though around that 2.5 mark coming up right here. All right, this was the first calculated time, guys, right here at 2.5. Can someone record the 2:25 stick, please? Izzy was thinking that if they can bring this back over 64.27, 64.28, kind of like that mid-upper part of like the bull zone, then we would have some relatively decent odds of retesting around that 232, 234, 236 window. Okay, so it needs to be at least back above here. Do you see this break? They kept it beneath 2.6 this whole period. So odds are getting a little bit better because now we're at least working with this range. See where they close this and we can kind of get an idea of where they might want to take that to. Do you see that? This is more aligned with the 3375 34 area, which if that was the case could give us that retest of this range here. It's going to be a pretty important period over the next 20 minutes. One thing that I'm seeing that I don't think many people are seeing is that they could also keep this extremely stuck and delayed between the upper bull zone area and the channel if they decide that they don't want to break either end. We'll see what they do in the next few minutes here if they're going to try giving this a turnaround. Turnaround period was closer to like 3.4. This would also be the same period if they wanted to break down structure beneath that 6.422, 6.42225. It's a very big spot to break on the week. So far, no follow through off 2.627. I had a feeling that this was going to be a very tough spot to trade, so Actually, you know what? This is a very important spot. Let's do a poll here. How many think that they're gonna try to negate and hold, sustain 6422 and retrace 64 6433 6434 by, let's just go 2:38 p.m. The window is closer to like 2:34, 36, but and there's some extensions around 249, 250.
Connection lost.
What? Can you guys hear me?
Market data connection re-established.
What is that? What the hell was that voice? I've never heard that. What is that? Can you guys get as many votes on this as possible? Because this is a very important spot for the week, not just for the day. And this is a really big spot for the week, especially to see where they bring it to by midweek, right? Because this could put the remainder of the zone in play. Because we could have that zone-to-zone week that we talked about, or the core-to-core week. So this is setting us up for either or. Do you see what they're doing here? Hence the big battle off 6422. That's the exact spot that we thought that they could take this back to, and it would be extremely calculated. And so far you can see in real time how much they're trying their best to sustain this price point, but they need much more aggressive price action down here than this for this to stick. The odds were around like 3-4, 3-6. $18 yes, $50 no. Okay, so majority think that, not by much, by a hair, that they could try to clear, retest 3-3 by that 238 window. We'll see here. So if they end up sustaining but failing to retrace during this period, it means that they could continue to keep this stuck for a longer duration again, like up to another, I think the next window that opened up was closer to like 249, 250. Otherwise, past 3. Do we have any catalysts after 3 o'clock today? No, okay. So how aggressive do you think they're going to have to get in the next 2 to 3 minutes if they want to make this a probability? You would need something similar to that 2-5 stick, but you would need follow through. Because could they also take out the lows during this time period here? Yes, they could, right? So this is going to be a very important time to try. We need some liquidity too. Liquidity kind of died a bit. Three two had a bit of a battle. Yeah, I saw that. It got such a nice retracement. Did you trade it, Slipperman? This one actually traded a little bit better than ES. It got that break to that 14 mark. I would like to see Netflix back in the 20s. That would be nice for this one, especially since it stalled our exact ranges today, because that means it has a decent chance of coming back and retesting them. Apple, however, kind of took a second back test and stalled. Nice. Days retesting here too. So far, nothing really from either end. Even them delaying though this period here, okay, like the 210, 146. Like if they broke this at 146, we had pretty good odds of getting back to core. If they broke this at 210, we had decent odds of getting back to that 5.5. So them stalling at this point here and then bringing it back to this range in here. How do I explain this? It's not it's not really implying that they're going to give. This is implying that they could keep this pretty sideways off these ranges. Does that make sense? Like even if they take this out slightly lower, I still feel like this, the thing is they left like 0.25 in range that we could work with. So they could take it even like just a tiny bit lower and still afford to. That's kind of been the theme of the week though, is like, even yesterday I said they could take this just beneath 5.6 and then still bring it back, which they did. And then they kind of hovered 5.5, 5.6, 5.7, brought it to 7.6. This is the same case scenario here because 64.22.50, 64.22.25, 64.22 is the calculated spot. $18.19 wouldn't be bad, but $18.19 doesn't have as much confluence as 2.2 does. If they're going to take it to $18.19, they might as well take it to 64.10, 6,400. Does that make sense? So we can get prices that actually stick. I don't want 18.19 if they're not going to take it lower or sweep it all the way back up. 18.19 still keeps us at risk. Even if they end up holding it, it'll still keep us at risk for the week. It applies way more pressure. Do market makers know that 64.22 is a huge spot? These were the calculated points here in terms of breaking range. 236 back testing 64.22.25. That's an extremely calculated area and calculated time. This is 44 points off weekly open. There was a window at 3.8 and 3.9, so it could give them another odd to try to negate if they want to try to double bottom this. This would be the period to do so. If they fail range here, this is what's going to open up the window for those back tests that I talked about. If they sustain during this period here, let's say, and then they end up retracting some of this range, they do have an extended period here that they could try retracting it back up. What's the low so far? 2175. And lowest open close is 22 and 2225. Do you guys think they have an odd to try to negate this based on the time of day that they took it down to these ranges and the ranges that they triggered in terms of highs, lows, open, close? What do you guys think? What do you guys think? This is around 44, 44 and a half points. Last week we did say that they were working with 45 and a half point increments, like there was the 1.25 to 1.5 off. The weekly close, weekly open, I believe they're right in line with that 45.5. Yeah, they are. That's crazy. 45.5 from weekly close from last week. 45.25 from the week open. 46.75 from today's opening range. Very big spot for us to lose today if they end up taking it down. So far they're, I'd say it's a slight breach, but they'd have to have some sort of movement here. What do you guys think? Do they sweep the lows or do they take this lower in the zone? This is, or do they keep this sticky in this range? This is a huge area for us on the week. This was one of our first short targets off an 8-8 stall. So Brendan, the 18-19 would make sense off of like them stalling 8-4, 8-5. Right? Because 8-5 stall was the net differential. Remember how I said about 3.5 points? That would make sense because that would be like the reduction down. But that area doesn't really give much confluence in terms of like direction. Does that make sense? Like whereas 6-4-2-2, even with a slight breach, that could really help in terms of coming back to our weekly ranges of 64, 66, 71, 76. Do you know what I mean? Like our core areas, core to core hold would be a little bit better there. But they would have to have extremely defensive sticks to follow through. Here's the follow through sticks. How important would 240 and 241 be in terms of follow through and defense here? What do you guys think, especially off this range? How important do you think this would be? Super important because this is kind of like their last straw here. These are kind of the midpoints off these structural high stalls. This is off the 204. So what do you guys notice that's similar to this period here? Let me make these green actually. This period right here and this period here is the same exact time increment as this period here between 204 and 210. Okay, so this period here, but how much more pressure do we have during this period right now in comparison to here? I'd say a lot more pressure, but this is very similar in terms of price action during. So this period is in alignment with this period, which means you can get similar what? If these are the same time intervals, what kind of similarities could we get? What could be the same here? Yeah, you could get similar price action. Maybe similar range, right? This is the 34-minute bar. That's a pretty important stick. We're going to watch the 39 interval and 39 48, or sorry, 48 and 49. They're basically flirting with lows because they know the importance here. For 3 back testing, the window is between now and around 252, 249. The bull zone is 6420 area, 6421 area. From opening range, I believe they're still within that 45.5 point threshold, are they? Can someone double check? Where did we open today exactly? I think it was 646625. 646625. So we're 45 from open, and we said that we're working with a 45.5 point range. So this is, you guys, this is extremely tricky, okay? These aren't nasty candles. These are very calculated candles. What market makers are doing here is they're making it seem like they're going to take out this full range and quick, but they're actually staying within their means, especially from a real-time range. They're giving us, which is basically the bull zone. It's a very cool alignment with my theory, okay? So it kind of gives us room to work between 6420, 6420, 250. Does that make sense? Especially since they still have range from real-time open. And they still have something else. What else do they have? Don't get this wrong. What else do we still have to work with right here? We have a tiny, 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 tiny bit of range, and we have time. Okay, we still have 1, 2, 3, 4. We still have 4 minutes. All these answers you guys are giving, we're going down, we're going way lower, we're retesting lows, this is nasty. That's exactly what majority would think of this kind of PA. That's not actually what's happening, though. Especially not off this area here. It doesn't mean that they can't take it down. It just means that we haven't reached that point yet to make that decision. Does that make sense? We haven't broken that major range yet or reached that major point in time to make that decision that this is going way lower. No, they're keeping this extremely calculated within that range and at specific times of day. I would say maybe if they came back and took out 64.19, 18, especially off like 248, 249, then yes, I'd be a little bit more confident in saying that they could easily come back and retest 6388, 6390s. But so far they're kind of just flirting with the 6420s, which is what I figured they might do, especially off these ranges here. Are these really big spots for us to lose? What kind of PA would you start expecting off of here if they're going to hold and retrace? Because they did technically breach us, and they're still working within that 1.75, 1.5 point breaches that we've talked about. What could they do here? I'm gonna have to get some water soon, but I just wanted to see what they do this next period. Yes, they could sweep back, but what do you notice that they're doing? This is very high attention to detail. What do you guys notice that they're doing here? So a 66 point break from real-time open, or 44.5 point break, sorry, 45.5 point break is close to like 6420.75. which is basically the bottom of the bull zone area here. Okay, like this range here. Yeah, these areas should make you feel that way. Like, this area here should definitely make you feel iffy. What do you guys notice that they're doing here? These are the calculated ranges. So is this area here, this is extremely calculated range. What do you guys notice that they're doing? No, it doesn't have to be swept back. They're not doing nothing. They're doing something. You guys are just not paying close enough attention. No retracements back at 4849, but they did sustain. That is them doing something. This was them holding that 44 and 66 points in range, okay, off this point in time here. That is worth noting. Do you guys mind if I start deleting some stuff here? 251 was the second window that opens up here. And that window runs all the way through till past 3, closer to like 310, 11, 13, 14. Okay. I'm going to get water. I want you guys, I'm going to mute myself. I want you guys to tell me what this period here implied, especially for this next window. This is a very big spot. And it's not that we weren't doing anything here. They were just being very calculated about what exactly they were doing at that specific point in time. I'll be back in like 3 minutes. Oh, and Slipperman, this would be the time that they could do what you said, based on what they did during this period here, okay? sorry. All right. So they had a bit of a window here, like Slipperman was saying, for them to try to sweep back up closer to like that 2.8, 2.7, kind of like the midpoint between our bull range, which is between 3.2 and the 20 area. Kind of like this range here. See that they stalled. Mass range reduction down. This is the half point here too, between the period that we're working with, because this is the approximate period that we're working with here. So this is probably the midpoint. Yeah, it is. These are the midpoints of this very critical period around 301, 302, in terms of them really wanting to break up or down structure. And this is approximately the bottom of the bull zone when you start entering. Usually around 1975, 20. It's usually what I consider the top of our entry into the like the bull zone areas here, but this is closer to like the 3.2, 3.3. Do they have odds to try to immediately negate here if they really want to try holding the line? This is a pretty tricky spot. What do you guys think? This is also SPX 6400, that's right. And kind of like what I was telling Brendan, if they do take it back to that 1918 area, 1975 is still the bottom of like the bull zone range. That's basically that 3.5 point offset from us getting above 7.8 or getting over 8.8. Can you afford that kind of risk down? It's essentially been the theme for the week. Where's our opening range? I think this is... How quickly would you have to negate this risk if that was the case? Especially off of something like this. Insanely fast, right? No more than like a minute or two for this to try holding the line. Otherwise, that's going to put those 6410, 6405 areas in play like we talked about earlier. So, Slipperman, you know how you were saying that they could sweep it back? When do you normally sweep? When do you normally sweep? No, well, yeah, but forget timing for a sec. When would you normally sweep? Yeah, when you break an extremely calculated level and range, right? Like when you're at risk basically because you just broke a major like pivot point, that's when you'd have to sweep because it knows it's underwater. It's like when you're drowning, right? Like you try your best to pull your head back above water. Do you get what I'm saying? What's the one thing that stands out to you guys during this window here? This was the window that I said they're gonna have to break eventually, like one end or the other. They sustained at 251. They broke down at 301, 302. They retraced back. This is the midpoint. Pay attention to where they retrace back at 02. This is very important. Right back to 642225. What's 642225? What's 642225? What else is it? What else is that spot? Give me the exact ranges. No. I already know it's a bull zone. I can see. Don't give me the obvious. What does this mean? This is where some of you will fuck up the week. This is where some of you will kill the week. What does this mean? No, give me those exact ranges off 6422. 25. 44 points, 34 points, 66 points, 88 points. What is this implying? If they can hold here and turn this back around. 60, what? It's a pretty big spot. Hello? These ranges are what are calculated off of here. What's 64, 55, 57? Overnight lows. What's 64, 66, 67? Open. Close. What's 64, 88, 64, 90? Zone. What's 6508, 6510? Highs. This area is aligned with highs, lows, open, close. Do you understand what I'm getting at here? So this is the window to see what end of the trade they basically want to break. What do you mean bottom of the zone? That's like the entry into the zone. But how quickly do you think they have to act? Like, this is definitely putting us at risk, because if they fail these ranges here, that's when it opens up the window for the similar offsets in the inverse, right? So 66 points down, let's say, for instance. That'll give us our retest of our 6400 spot, basically 6402. Another way of looking at this off our 5556. There's also some midpoint 44-point ranges here. This could also play out if they don't hold here today. That's closer to that 64.10, 64.11, basically those neutral ranges. I would rather avoid that. This is also linked with the zone. Max range would be the 88-point range, which would take us back to core areas, okay? So these are basically the scenarios on the downside if they don't hold the line here, okay? This is what they could end up doing if they don't sustain around this range. Make sense? This is what would be in play. And it really, really, like, reduces odds of us getting these areas that we want, right? These ranges that we want. This retest that we want of 8889. Those were previous week's open close. Previous highs. Do you see? So 6422 is extremely important. So is the 64, 10, and 12 spot, okay, like this area here. But here's a trick question. Okay, 64, 10 area is more aligned with the 64, 5, 5, 5, 6, let's say, okay? This area here, right? Or this would be like the 33-point hold there, or like, so is the zone, 68 points off the zone, or off 5, 5, 5, 6 would be the bottom of the zone. Okay, that's how you can have that in play. Why do we have better odds though of 64.20s potentially sticking versus 64.10, 11, 12? What do you guys think? This is exactly what's playing out with them keeping this stuck, by the way. I did mention that they could easily do this afternoon if they decide that they don't want to break either end, and that would just kind of keep it stuck between upper bull zone and lower channel. All right, what does this imply? Or why would they forget the point theory? Stick to the zone theory. Why might these be the lows? I'm gonna start deleting some of this just because reaching that point in the day where they might keep this stuck. Why might they hold 20s or have a higher confluence holding 20s over this area here? This is why they're keeping it extremely sticky in this range. What do you guys think that is? Based on what? What's the logic? What's the logic here, you guys? Your lows are often associated with what? What are your lows often associated with? Come on. Your lows are often associated with what? Your open close. Okay, where did we start the week? What kind of an area is that? Let's use Fluffy's template. Where did we start the week? And what kind of an area did we start the week in? Where did we start the week? Where are we stalling? What are these areas here? Yeah, so there's more confluence based on where we opened and closed the week to likely sustain closer to core type of range. And before I ever created the means, I used to call it mid-core. Like the 50s and 60s I used to call mid-core area, but then I feel like it got confusing to some people because it's kind of like your midpoint, which is why I just call them the means now. But like 5-5, 5-7, so on and so forth. 6-6 is like a lower core area, which means they could take it to lower core areas, right? What would a lower core area be? If your bull zone starts around the 19, 20, 21, 22 area, what's a lower core area? We started the week in a lower core area. 6-6 to 6-8 is considered lower core, right? So 20 to 22 is lower core. How many points in range do you normally get between core to core? This is why I said there's maybe a chance that we could get this area here, just because technically, like, this is a lower core. Usually it's around 40, like 51 to 52 points in range, 55 points in range. Those are usually the levels, but I would prefer that they try sustaining the 20s just because that's going to give us better odds. So based on where we opened the week, which area has a little bit more confluence? Which area has more confluence, guys? I'm trying to save you guys from being caught, because I bet you a lot of people are getting caught this afternoon. And like I was saying back here, if they didn't take this up at 210 and bring it back around this 2:30-ish period, then they likely could keep it stuck all afternoon, which is exactly what they've done between basically core areas, core zone. This is the top of the bull zone here at 3.2. This is the entry into the channel at 3.334. This is also the 13-point range. This would be the 13 to 17 point break. This is the 21 to 22 point break. Do you see what they did this afternoon? They brought it here, stalled, 13 points, brought it back again the second time, stalled 13 points. What do they have to break right now for them to give us a decent structure break based on this new low here? Where is this potentially keeping us stuck? Trying to help you guys. Yeah, there's some confluence still around this area here, right? Did they break down major range and turn this back around? Were you guys paying attention to what they did off this period here? They did something very specific, and it's the exact same thing that they did back in here when you guys said that they were doing nothing. They weren't doing nothing. They were actually doing something extremely strategic. You guys just weren't paying close enough attention. What did they do during that period? They sustained those 66 and 44 point ranges. Okay, these are really, really big spots right here around 2.2, 2.225. Especially at these points in time. Do you see the sustainment? Sustainment. Okay. Now what do they have to do though? Since they're keeping it stuck till end of day. That seemed the most likely considering they sustained range, but they didn't quite break. They did break earlier, but there was no closing points above. Do you see this? So they broke above, they didn't close above. What do you really have to break to get some good structure here? Which areas? Based off previous breaks and current lows. What area is going to give us a nice structure break this afternoon? And this would be a decent spot to bring it back to. If they're going to nest it in the channel, like I said earlier, that's fine. It seemed like that was going to be the case based on what ended up happening there. Which area has the most confluence here this afternoon if they hold this area here? Nope. A little bit higher than that. This is also now the 17-point break from here. Pay attention. Do you guys see that? So if they take out this, that's also a 17-point break. Which areas here are going to have the most overhead this afternoon? Yeah, that 3.5, 3.6, 3.7, 3.8 area, that area is a huge overhead this afternoon. When do you think they'd have to try getting it back there to retest by? Especially to avoid these lows. And the range should be quite similar. So this is probably the 50% mark. So you're not completely wrong about the 2.8 area. I would say that that's probably like the half point range, which is also that mid to upper bull zone area, but still like this range in here off lows, 2.7, 2.8, it's definitely the midpoint. But I would say that the bigger overhead areas for sure around that 3.6, 3.7, 3.8. Okay. Well, I would say that the first condition, you guys have to get better at conditions, okay? First condition is going to be that you want to get back over this 2.7, 2.8 spot, probably ideally by like the 3.30, 3.32 mark, okay? When do you want to try to retest 3.1, 3.2? Because that's also a very important like point. When would you want to come back and try to retest 3.1, 3.2? Let's get some conditions going. Did this help some of you guys in terms of seeing the fact that they could hold here? I know it's not really fun in range. Trust me, we could have had much more fun with range had they broke right here, but what's the one reason why they didn't really have to bring it back to the 60s today? I know we still have half an hour and a lot can happen, but what's one reason why? Why could they afford to just take this back to the channel if they wanted to and just nest it here? What's one reason why? And that does make sense, actually, thinking about that. Considering they didn't break at that time. Why could they just take it to the channel and keep it there for a bit? No. Why isn't there as much pressure to bring it back to 6.6? Why might they just stabilize it? Yeah, they didn't, but... Do we have high odds on the 18th, 19th, 20th? No. Okay, so 6, they could just kind of keep it. They don't have to have major range breaks. Okay, so when do you think there would be high pressure for them to bring this back to this to 6.6, 7.1, 7.4, 7.8? By when? If they can't do it today. If they want to take it to the channel today, I don't really care. No, probably before the 21st. The 20th, tomorrow. Right? Because the 21st is your earliest odd to do what? Or your highest odd, I guess, not earliest. Highest odd of doing what? You can afford sitting in the channel, okay, today. Can you afford that tomorrow? Okay, you can't really afford that if you're trying to reset back tomorrow, right? Could we afford, though, having 6434, 44, 48, 664, 55, 58, 64? Can we afford a channel to means day today and maybe overnight and tomorrow morning if they don't want to take this too much higher? Yes, we could, right? Because there's not that much pressure in terms of time. Do you guys see these breaks right here? 330 breaking that 6428 structure here. So that condition was met. I want to see if they can retest 6432 as early as 335.36. Do you guys think we still have odds to bring this back to 5155 today? Or you guys think those odds are shot? I would say maybe if they can clear the channel. If they can't clear the channel, then probably not. It's not really required though, but it would be better for odds to break as early as tomorrow. So but pitting channel makes the most sense. It's all going to depend on the kind of volatility that we get here too. So let's see. Let me just reset this chart. See what they do here. So far they're stalling 2.9. Oh wow, I'm almost at 1,100 followers. Okay, let's see. I really think that this point in the day will determine just how much range and where they're going to pin us. It seems like pinning the channel makes the most sense, especially since it's only the 19th today. But I really, really, really hope that this is the low for the week. That would give us the best odds for the 21st and 22nd. You vote that they pin above 50? I mean, if they did, that would be like a 33, 34 point range back. Right? So it's not... So, like, this is how you can figure out your odds, okay? Like, if they can break a 17 point range, which is breaking 3.6, okay? During, like, this period here, then your odds get pretty high. Does that make sense? Because you're already breaking half that range in half the increments of time. But that's a lot of pressure. I would say that you definitely would have to get at least back over 3.4, 3.3, 3.6. And so far these stalls at 3.4, 3.5 are not really implying that they're going to do that. Like, they're implying that this is probably the overhead. But in terms of odds, if they're moving off like 39-minute intervals, we were saying, then the odds are probably closer to like 340 off this actual low here. So 340, 341. What were those calculated times that we had earlier, guys? I deleted them off the chart. What was it? 309, I think, right? And 313. So it seems like the odds are super late this afternoon then, off these points here. These would be the earliest points though. So far 3.5, 3.6 stalling. It seems like the calculated points are closer to 3.40, 41. might have a chance. It's not a super high odd, but you definitely have to get back at least over like this wall here, like at least over 3-1. Should we do a poll? Did this help you guys avoid like taking an unnecessary short trade this afternoon? Or like at least managing your expectations? Like if we had broke during this period, then I would have said for sure they could have retracted back to 5-5 and 6-6, but them stalling during this period was pretty evident that they were gonna excuse me, that they were gonna compress range between these 20s and 30s. All right, so it seemed like odds were a little bit better around 40 and 4-1. You'd probably have to hold the 2-7 line though. I don't think you really want to give up this range right here at this time. Even getting it back to the channel would not be too bad. I don't think it's like the best, but it's better than them keeping it stuck. Do you know what I mean? Like off support, because this is a really big support range. I don't really want them to keep it stuck right here. It doesn't fully fight off the volatility, but it does reduce it a little bit. It's a bit of a battle between the mid-channel here. So 3-1 has some overhead, like close to like this area here. Set this 2975. Are we still at risk of retesting the lows if they don't break during this like interval here? You guys think? So I figured they're probably capping range around like this. A lot of overhead here around these 30s. But as long as we're still beneath 3-2, this is still gonna keep us at risk of 2-2. So far, some more stalls here off 44-1. Odds seemed super late this afternoon. Gonna watch our generic times of day at 5-4, 5-5. Well, this isn't really a range that is, I don't know, like 12 to 13 points. Like, do you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't really care to trade that kind of range. Like, you could take a long off the 20s for maybe Friday's expiration or Thursday's expiration, but to like day trade this right now is going to be pretty hard. The Hulk is also telling you that they're limiting range here and probabilities because odds were not super high for the 19th anyway. So if this was the 21st or 22nd, that would maybe be a different story. Off 2-2. But hopefully they bring it back into the channel. Channel gives us better odds of 64-20s holding. But they need to start turning this around here soon. They might just be saving it for the last 10 minutes of the day from the looks of it, right? I think that's what they're doing. They also did break 13 points up here, so it does imply that they could still do that off these ranges down here. And that would be enough to bring us back over the channel. And it brings us right back to where they stalled the 210 stick. This area here. So let's see. That's what I'm thinking they're going to do. I could be wrong. I'm not always right. But I feel like they're going to try to bring it back to those 30s. That would be the best case scenario. If they leave it in the 20s, it's not the end of the world. It's just, it still keeps us at risk. Because we would have to try our best to sustain. Otherwise, it's not going to mess up things for the week. It's just going to make the trading a little bit trickier. Because trading around bull ranges is a lot easier than trading around neutral ranges. Does that make sense to you guys? You have to think of like the zones in correlation to PA. You'll have way better PA, easier PA off the 20s. Does that make sense? That's the main reason I want them to hold this area here. But in order for them to do that, I do think that they have to get back into the channel into the close today. Because that at least gives us better odds. I would rather nest the channel overnight, like this box here, than to nest this area here. Well, any core ranges usually give you odds of expanding. Come on, bulls. Give us some breaks. See if they can get... When was the 39-minute interval from here? I think they just passed that window. And then off that 13 stick or whatever it was. I think it's coming up here. I think it's at 348. 348 is the calculated time. I just mark these because these are the generic clips that we usually have daily, but this is in correlation with that 313 period where they were sustaining. They definitely waited for final 10 minutes today to see what they're going to do with this. All right, I just put that poll up for you guys. Max range you guys think for real-time session? 64, 30, 32, so that would be like a zone stall. 3-3, 3-5, 3-6, 3-8, or you think that they could actually break that 17-point range and bring it to 3-9, 4-2. I figured that max range is probably close to that, I don't know, like that 3-5, 3-6, 3-7 area, so there's a bit of a crossover there. And it's mostly if they are able to, like this reduction stick at 4-7, not great. They definitely need to break over at least 3-1, 3-2. I would say by that 350 mark for that to be the case. Otherwise, this is going to be super hard for them to break. So, definitely running out of time here, though. So far giving us stick down. And it's giving it right back to that same range that we said we need to try holding off this structure break around 2.5, 2.6. That's a 1 minute 3-bar down. 1, 2, 3, 4. Fourth bar would be 350. So if they really want to save this range, they have to negate off this 4-9 stick. Otherwise, that could set up 350 to retest those lows and dump the close. So they really have to try holding here. What are you guys voting for? Majority's thinking 3-3, 3-5. So I would say that that's possible if they can get over this 30-31 by that 350. If they stall 3-1 by 350, that's probably not going to happen. They definitely need to get at least over that. And they also have to negate off this 4-9 stick. How much time is left in this? You probably want this back over at least this 2.6 spot, ideally over 2.7, but I don't think it's going to get back over 2.7. Here's the 350 flip here. They kind of kept it right in between, above 2.5, beneath 2.7. Which still keeps us at risk, especially them stalling 2.9. See, they're back testing here. See if they can hold 2.2 off 350. Otherwise, they'll dump that close. Holding 2.2 could still give an odd though. 2.225 is our exact calculated range off open. So see how much they can retrace. So basically, if they hold 2.2, 2.225 and bring this back to 2.625, then they still have an attempt to try. I don't really consider that an ugly stick. That's pretty calculated because they stalled 2.8, 2.7, and then they brought it back to 2.2, which is the 44-point move from open. So that's a pretty calculated move, which is a midpoint move. That's when you're trading in between. Does that make sense? Their limiting range is what they're doing. Oh yeah, for that. That's why I said I don't think it's worth trading the rest of this afternoon unless you buy maybe Thursday, Friday, because I don't really care for a 12, 13 point range on either end, even if they were to break down or up. It doesn't really give us too much to work with, basically. So what do you guys think? They held exactly that 2.225, which is the exact 44-point metric from open. And I think that exact 34-point range off 350 What do you guys think the conditions would have to be for them to even have a shot at retesting here? They're definitely keeping this pretty limited on both ends. What would the condition have to be? This is the exact P I figured that they would do this afternoon, which is really shitty of them, but it does make sense. What would they have to do here? Well, usually 5-4, 5-5 are general turnaround sticks, so it's usually the cutoff period for the last 10 minutes. I'd say if they can't even get back over 2-7 by 5-4, they're definitely at an odd of keeping this probably closer to that 19, 18, 20, 21 lows. If they're able to retrace back over 2-7, 2-6 during this period, then 5-5 would give an attempt of retesting this 2-8, 2-9. But they really have to try holding the line off 5-4. Basically, it would have to be like a higher low than that 350 break to give a shot of that reattempt off 2-2. Overall, though, range is definitely reduced. This is them keeping it stuck this afternoon and limiting both sides of the trade. Two 2175 being retested at 354. 5-5 is a general cutoff period here, so this is really the market's time to either make or break if it wants to take a low of day or if it actually wants to try saving some of this range. In order to negate this risk, it needs, I would say, at least back over 2675, 2625. I don't think 25, 24 is enough. And you'd have to see some follow through on the stick to follow. And they're doing this right off that 2175, 22, 2225. They're trying. 20 seconds to go on this stick. Two six stall. I feel like I needed a tiny bit higher, but we'll see what the follow through stick does here. I think they're limiting this in the zone, but unless they give like some crazy end of day sticks, I don't know. Would 2-6 be required to break this 2-8 spot, you think? Like if that was going to be the case? Or 2-7, sorry. Yes, for sure. 2775. See if we get that 2-8 break. You definitely need at least over this 2-9, 2-8 before that 58 mark to give even an odd of getting this stick break here if they're going to save it for last 5 minutes of the day. This is where you can get some decent SPX trades off that 5-4, 5-5 hold. See if they give the full range break here, though. $2,950 so far stalling. These are some pretty calculated spots right here, around 29, 30.75, 31. What time is it? So I would say that your 5-8 stick has to be over that 3-1 area for that to even have a slight odd of getting some decent stick breaks. We'll see. This is if they want to save the range for the last 2 minutes, guys. There were odds till 4, so you might hit your range at 4 o'clock. Bring it back to the channel, come on. Don't keep us stuck here beneath 3-2. Five eight's struggling a little bit here. You have to take out 30, I think, in the first 10 seconds for this. Okay, there's a decent odd. They might give us a 3-3, 3-4. Let's see here. The odds were high at 4. Let's see if they can give us a channel break. Please don't stall the channel. Give us some decent stick breaks into the close.
I threw a balancer in the garage yesterday. He was set up.
Where did they stall? 3-2? What time is it? 10 seconds to go. This is the break that we need. We might get that 3-3. There we go. There we go. Nice, my order filled. I actually got my sell order filled. That's a sweet move into the close. Wow, I can't believe they actually hit that high range. Wow, they actually did it. There's my other order that went through. They actually filled it. Nice. I got the full range break on that. That's a clean move back to 3-3, 3-4. We actually did it. Do you guys see my sell orders fill? Those bells. I thought I was fetching too high with those sell orders in. I was like, I don't know if those are going to trigger. I just did some SPX in my account for end of day, and then I did some SPY in my sister's. Nice. I'm so happy that that worked because I was pretty scared that that was going to stall off that last stick. Really nice move on those. Back to this range here. Basically 640 on SPY. 64, 34, 25 to the exact spot. 4 p.m. had the highest odds of 3.5, 3.6, so we'll see. And this is exactly where we want to bring this back to. End of day. So good job, guys, on voting for that. That was the best area to bring this back to end of day. This is going to help us reduce risk for overnight. Conditions for overnight, I definitely want them to sustain the channel. That would be ideal. And I believe, and honestly, guys, a lot of this was because of where they held right here, okay? This hold at 5.4, do you see this? This is what allowed for this break. Look, to that spot that I have bolded in here. This is a huge overhead around 3.650, so that's a big, big spot. If they can get this over 3.8, then I think that gives us our... I think that gives us our 17-point break. Oh, wow. That's exactly 17 points off lows, guys. That means that we're setting up for this to get back, ideally, to 5.5, 5.4. So them holding the line here is really good. This is also a 13-point break into close. If you guys saw that at 4, do you see this off this low? And from the 359 stick, this was exactly a 13-point break right here. Do you see this? They hit 15 points, so not quite 17. I didn't really have high odds of them hitting the 17-point range at 359. They had better odds at 4 or after 4, but they still broke and closed over a 13-point range here, so that's still good off the low of day. And if you noticed, they did it on the second interval here. Do you see this? Before the 30-second flip. This is what saved the range end of day. Excellent work, guys. You guys, majority of you guys voted that they would take this back to 3-3 and 3-5. Second place was 3-9-4-2. I didn't really think they could get to 3-9-4-2. I actually voted for 3-6, 3-8, and that was only if they had broke up at 350, but they brought that range down a little bit. So I'll show you if they had actually sustained maybe a little bit during this period here, like this here, there could have been a little bit better odds that they could have gotten. Do you see what I'm saying? Like maybe close to like 3-7, 3-8. So this was just overall range reduction there. Overall range reduction from like 4-5 to here. It was about 7 points. Meaning they had odds of stalling close to like maybe here, which is where they're stalling right now. 3-6, do you see that? That was the reduction. So there's definitely some overhead here. Does that make sense? This is the range that they reduced during this period. Likely the range that they're going to stall or try stalling. So lots of overhead around 3-650, 3-7. Excellent job, you guys, on voting for 3-3, 3-5 for real time. That's exactly where they took this to. This is the 3. They stalled, I believe, right at 3-5 at 4 o'clock. Excuse me, right at 3-4 for 359. I did too, but that's okay. That's more of if they had not stalled this stick here and that reduction at 354. I think that's the main reason why this was reduced a tiny bit. Do you see this? Like, I feel like had they not stalled that, we could have had 3-6, 3-7, 3-8. I don't think we were completely off on that. It was mostly based on this 5-4 stick stalling a little bit. Anyway, great job, guys. We're back in the channel. We'll see where they close this overnight. I hope you guys had a good end of day. Smos, did you end up breaking back even or hopefully making money on that? I kind of waited till end of day. I avoided trading this and I waited till this 55 stick confirmation. So it was a bit of a scary trade because I did wait till last 5 minutes, but them holding the line at 2-1, 2-2, 2-2, 2-5 was basically all I needed to know, and they closed above. So this is a hold above, close above, hold above, close above, and it made for a nice end of day trade. We also had durations till 4, which helps. And it made sense that they could bring it back to 3-6. In other words, remember what I was saying earlier, how they basically could afford to take this 3 points beneath. I was telling this to Brendan earlier, 3 to 3.5 points beneath, and they could also take it 3 to 3.5 points above the zone, which is like 3-2. Does that make sense? Do you see that? This is basically just beneath the 2-2 support. Okay, you can have similar range on the upside. So 3-2 is where the zone is. Let me know if this makes sense. I was explaining this to Brendan earlier. This would be the equivalent. So if they take it back here, it basically, Brendan, I don't know if you're still around, and Slipperman, this is basically the equivalent of that. So it's the crossover between the lower bull zone and lower to mid channel. Does that make sense? Does 3-6, 3-7 do much for us? What do you guys think? It's the same offset as what they breached beneath right here. You can afford to bring it back up. This is the 17-point range off lows. Does this do much for us, guys? 3637? Don't get this wrong, please. Does this do much for us? So we knew that if they took us down, the condition to help mitigate risk is they'd have to do the exact same offset, which means taking it 3 points above 3233. Does this help us right here? Don't get this wrong. Does that completely mitigate risk? No, it doesn't, okay? No, it does not. What do we need to do to mitigate risk? What do we got to do to mitigate risk? What do we have to do? No. Look at my screen. The answer is right in front of you. Okay, this is enough to try mitigating real-time risk. Okay, they brought it back 17 points above the area that they breached. Ideally, we wanted to hold above 6422. What do they have to do to mitigate this risk? They don't necessarily have to clear the channel. The answer is right in front of you guys. It's right here. It's right in front of you. This is a calculated risk. That's why I wanted them to bring it ideally back to 3536. It's the same offset. What do they have to do to really mitigate the risk? Yeah, you want it at least back to 3839. You want it back 17 points above the 22 spot. Got it? That will help us mitigate risk. And that would also be mid to upper channel versus lower channel. Okay? So we want it at least back close to this 38, 39, 40, 41 area, right? 22-point range would be like closer to 44. I don't think we need to get it to 44 by close, but if they can try getting it to like the mid to upper channel, which is this area here overnight, even that would be good. Okay? So we want mid to upper channel overnight between 3842, 44. That would really help us in terms of mitigating risk. As long as we're still beneath here, we're still at risk. Okay? We're still at risk here of going back to 14, 10. Do you see what I'm saying? Got it? So it doesn't completely take away all the risk. It still can keep these neutral spots in play. So getting it back to 33, 35, 36 was just the minimum condition for real time to try to mitigate some of this risk. That's our 17-point break, which they didn't even do in real time. All they did in real time is break us up 13 points. Okay? Breaking us up 13 points is helpful, but does it fully mitigate the risk that we're facing here? Not quite, because could that still keep us stuck in the channel? Think about it. Can them breaking 13 points still keep us stuck in the channel? If they break 13 points off the actual lows versus, let's say, 2-2. Yes, it can, right? Whereas breaking off of 2-2 would have actually given us an odd of getting back to the means over 4-8. Do you see what I'm saying? Let me know if you guys understand this concept. So what does this apply pressure for? Since this is giving odds that they could stay stuck in the channel, do you all see how this can keep us stuck in the channel? Okay. I hope you had a good morning. It's my brother's birthday today. All right. Do you see how this could keep us stuck in the channel? So ideally, they can close us, even if they close us here where they stalled us, like right here? Could that still help us get out of the channel? Yes, it can. Okay? Do you see what I'm saying? So they don't necessarily have to bring it above 3.8, but the higher they can pin this, the better the odds they have of bringing it back to 5.1, 5.2, 5.3, right? The reason why 3.8 would be better is because do you really want to stall 5.3? Or do you want a shot at breaking 5.6? Obviously, you want a shot at breaking 5.6. That's the calculated range, and it's also those lows, right? Because if you had something like this, where they stalled 5.3, then, and 5.1, right? Like if they come and stall this area here, then can't you literally just end up making a second reversal? Do you see what I'm saying? Like, do you really want to come and do something like this and then stall 5.2, 5.3? No, because then you'd come right back down. Do you see what I'm saying? So, do you get the confluence here? Them closing around there means it could fail 5.5, 5.6, make a lower high. Okay? Does that make sense? So it is more ideal. Like, we don't necessarily need to get over 3.6 right now, but for like these types of ranges, it would at least give us a better odd of breaking these structures, or at least retesting them, nesting there. Does that make sense? Versus like this area here is not bad off the lows. Okay, it gives us an odd of retesting, but it also gives us an odd of stalling, right? Do you see that? So it would be nice if they could try getting us to 3.7, 3.8. I would say at least pin us around this 3.6 mark. That would be so ideal, because then maybe they just gap us up a point or two. Okay, so do you see what I'm saying? 3.3 to 3.6 equates to 5.1, 5.4 area. Okay, 3.7 to 3.9 equates to 5.6, 5.5, 5.6 area. It means that you have a better odd, right? And that also means that you have a higher odd of actually holding the 2.2 versus like failing it, because off of 2.2, do you see what I mean? Then you have an odd of breaking 6.6 or 5.6. Okay, whereas here you still have an odd of back testing this 19-20 range. So there's a bit of an overlap in here between here and here. Okay? Because there's that reduction that they gave, and you know how they gave this 3 point right here? Could they do the same up here that they did down here? This is a very trick question, but try to pay attention. Because they gave that reduction here, but they offset it right here, could they technically do the same thing up here, even if they ended up closing at 3.5, 3.6? Could they still give us that odd of offsetting up here? Yes, they can, because that seems to be the trend, right? So it wouldn't be the end of the world, but there would be a lot of pressure to get that 3 point break, right? Because is stalling at 5.3, 5.6 really a spot you want to stall? This area here, midweek.
Here's what I found.
No, it's not. Okay. Could this area here also help get you back to your previous highs? Yesterday's range highs? Yes. Right? Do you see how you have like that 3 points in between here on all of these? So it could end up being that theme where there could be pressure for them to like break these highs. Do you see that? That's why you'd want maybe more of like a 22-point range, or like a gap open or an aggressive push into the close. Do you get what I'm saying? Does this make sense? So these are my conditions, guys, for the close before I sign off here. Someone wants to write them down in the Discord or wherever. Ideally, I would like a 6435, 6436, 50 close. Best case scenario would be closing closer to 643750, 643875, 6439. It's not necessarily required, but it would really help increase our odds of getting back to 56, 57, 58 and avoid staying stuck in the channel, as these areas here between 64.32 and 35 are more closely associated with the 4448 mark, which could keep us channel bound, and also could imply that they may stall 6453, which would create a lower high on some structures. If we are able to get a good pin into the close, I would love if they could keep this nested in the channel. 4448 remains an overhead. It would be ideal if they could try coming back and retesting. If they give us these pins that we need, it would be ideal if they could try getting back to the means, which is the 54, 55, 56 area by London session. So let's say, for instance, if they bring this back here, they close around here, okay, they channel overnight right here, okay, that's fine. We want to try getting back to here by London session would be ideal, and see what they do for the retest. Since tomorrow's the 20th, tomorrow's the best case scenario for us to retest core areas being 6471, 6474, 6476, 78, 83, so on and so forth, because we want to try being back in the zone by the 21st. Being back in the zone by the 21st means getting back over 6488, 6490 to give those retests of 6497, 96, 6503, 6508, so on and so forth, with a tiny odd this week to still expand to 6520s, with the idea that they held 6420s, which so far we are doing, but this puts a lot of pressure for overnight and for these end of day pushes into the close and retracements. Any questions, guys, before I sign off? Or are you guys good to go on this? So I'm not surprised to see them take it back here into the close. These are extremely pinnable spots. I don't think that they can close it above 3738, but I feel like they're going to try, especially because of that breach. I feel like they'll probably try keeping it between 33, 35, 36. Hopefully they can give us at least a 65, 64, 35, 75, 64, 36, 50. 64, 35, 50, 64, 36, 50. Ideal for the close. Anything above this 3650 is great, right? But I'm not gonna bet the bank on that. We'll see. So far they are doing a great job holding the range. Great work this afternoon. Really good job, guys, on all the pulls today. You guys were 3 for 3 today, so nice work on that. Good job on guessing that 3-5, 3-4, 3-3 would be max range for real time. I figured that between 3-6, 3-8 would be max for the session here. I think I'm right. I'm not sure if they'll trigger 3-6-50, but I guess we'll have to see. If they do end up closing around here, it would be so ideal if they gave us like that 3-point gap. Does that make sense? So if they close here, I'd love a 3-point gap to 3-8-3-9. It would really help us, like, just, it would kind of give us like that push, you know what I mean, that we need to get to where we'd have to be. This is if assuming they keep us beneath 3-6-50. If they close us at 3-7, 3-8, 3-9, that's even better, okay? Because then it gives us an even better odd of getting those structure breaks. 3,750 to 3,850, 3,925 is the best case scenario for us to close at, okay? That's a 17-point break off 642225, and it's also, I believe, a 22-point break off the actual lows, if I'm not mistaken, or pretty close. Oh no, a 22-point break off the actual lows is closer to 4-1. I don't think they'll get it to 4-1 for the close, but I mean, maybe that could be like the gap conditions. I was just wanting them at least to get us above here, and ideally closer to this area here. Okay. All right, I will catch you guys tomorrow. I do have an appointment with my accountant tomorrow morning, so I won't be around the first. What time's my appointment? Market opens at 7:30. No, I won't be around this tomorrow morning. I'll be around closer to the afternoon, so I'll be streaming tomorrow afternoon. Okay? 10 a.m.'s my appointment, so I'll be back around probably closer to like 1 p.m. Eastern time. Okay? I'll be around for the opening, probably the first hour, and then I won't be there after for a good 2-3 hours. So I will see you guys tomorrow. No, I'll have some notes posted for overnight, but I think you guys have the conditions straight. Oh, if they take us back beneath 3-2 into the close, let's say, then we definitely have bad odds of getting that break. Oh, I didn't show you guys. Do you guys want to see what I got him? Did I get these? What do these look? Those are not done. There you go. Those aren't done either. Oh. Hold on. Those aren't done. I think. Why do these look kind of different online? What the hell? I don't. None of these look like them. I should have got the actual name. Thanks, guys. Okay. I don't know why I can't find these. This is a good break back up, by the way, for 2:30 or like 4:30. I don't see these on their site. I don't know why. These don't seem to be on here unless I'm like looking at the wrong ones or something, but what do you guys think? For a guy, not a girl. I got these ones. I feel like these are very classic. I don't really like over the top. Yeah, because I didn't really like that they were brown. Like for, I don't know, I feel like guys like black more, but I feel like the monogram ones was just too much. There was these ones. These are like their newer ones, but I thought these ones were, I don't know, like too bulky around the eye. Or there was these. It was kind of a toss-up between this one and the first one. But I still think the first one is the nicest. I don't know why it's not on their website. I can't find it. This one seems more classic to me. Yeah, but he does, my brother does like blingy stuff though. Like he's, because I was gonna get him black, but I'm like, I feel like he's also very tan, so I feel like gold goes better with his skin tone. Like my brother's a bit darker than me. And maybe black would just like wash him out, right? I feel like gold looks nicer on tanned skin. Anyway. Oh, people were like, oh, like, get these. I'm like, those are so over the top. I don't like those. These ones, like the monogram or hologram or whatever. That's too much. Alright, hopefully he likes them. I'll let you guys know. I want to kind of spoil him for his birthday. It's his first birthday since his accident. I'm gonna go give them to him now, actually. Okay, I will see you guys tomorrow.